Welcome to our Middle East briefing program. Today, we're diving into some exciting and important news from around the world. First, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has had a rare phone call with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Abbas urged Australia to recognize Palestine, and Albanese said he's considering it, but no timeline has been set yet. Meanwhile, other countries like France, the UK, and Canada are planning to recognize Palestine at the UN, aiming for a two-state solution. Abbas also thanked Australia for its humanitarian aid to Gaza. Next up, there's a global push for peace in the Middle East. France and Saudi Arabia led a high-level UN conference to support a two-state solution, calling for Israel's recognition of Palestine and a demilitarized Palestinian state. Despite opposition from Israel and the US, over 145 countries support Palestinian statehood, showing growing international momentum for peace. However, hurdles remain, and the path forward is still challenging. Finally, in the tech and geopolitics arena, the US and China are battling over rare earth minerals, crucial for modern technologies. China dominates the supply chain, but the US and other nations are working to diversify sources by partnering with developing countries like Vietnam and Greenland. While these efforts are gaining traction, experts warn that China's long-standing control over rare earths will be tough to challenge quickly. That's all for today. Please continue to stay tuned for more detailed updates. Australian Broadcasting Corporation reports that Prime Minister Anthony Albanese recently engaged in a rare phone conversation with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, marking one of the first direct talks since the escalation of conflict in Gaza. During the call, Abbas emphasized Australia's potential role in fostering peace through the recognition of Palestine, a move that Albanese has yet to commit to but remains under consideration, contingent on its effectiveness. Foreign Minister Penny Wong expressed her concern that without timely recognition, Palestine might cease to exist, highlighting the urgent need for a pathway to a two-state solution. Several Western nations, including France, the UK, and Canada, have pledged support for recognizing Palestine at the upcoming UN General Assembly, provided Hamas is excluded from governance, underscoring a global push for diplomatic progress amid ongoing violence. Associated Press details the renewed momentum for a two-state solution at the United Nations, where France and Saudi Arabia spearheaded a high-level conference aimed at revitalizing negotiations after decades of stagnation. Despite Israel's vehement opposition and the ongoing violence in Gaza and the West Bank, the conference saw broad international backing for Palestinian statehood, with over 125 countries supporting a two-state framework. The event produced the New York Declaration, urging Israel to recognize Palestine and proposing a phased plan for a demilitarized Palestinian state, supported by a UN-backed stabilization mission. Notably, Arab nations condemned Hamas attacks, calling for Hamas to relinquish control of Gaza, signaling a shift towards a political solution rooted in diplomacy and international cooperation. The French and Saudi foreign ministers, along with other global leaders, remain committed to maintaining the momentum for Palestinian independence, planning an upcoming event during the UN General Assembly to formalize new recognitions and proposals. The conference's outcome, including the endorsement of the declaration by the European Union and Arab League, signifies a significant diplomatic step forward, emphasizing the importance of recognition, security, and humanitarian aid in achieving a two-state solution. French Ambassador Jérôme Bonifant highlighted the importance of Gaza's humanitarian crisis and the need for a ceasefire, stressing that peace can only be achieved through recognition of Israel's right to exist and the establishment of a viable Palestinian state. Amidst these diplomatic efforts, Penny Wong's warning underscores the fragile nature of this peace process, warning that failure to act could result in the disappearance of Palestine as a recognized entity. CNN vividly reports the harrowing scenes of Israeli hostages suffering in Gaza, with videos revealing their emaciated bodies and desperate pleas for mercy. Among them, 24-year-old Eviatar David and 22-year-old Rom Braslavsky are shown in states of extreme weakness, their voices barely audible as they describe their dire conditions, starvation, pain, and the imminent threat to their lives. These distressing images have stirred international outrage, highlighting the worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where starvation has claimed at least 175 lives since 2023. The families of the captives, traumatized and desperate, have publicly shared their anguish, urging swift action to rescue their loved ones. Meanwhile, Israel faces mounting pressure to respond decisively to Hamas's tactics, which appear aimed at pressuring Israel through hostage suffering, as radical voices like Itamar Ben-Gvir advocate for aggressive military escalation and full conquest of Gaza to secure the hostages and eliminate Hamas entirely. Yahoo US details the Israeli government's strategic decision under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to escalate military operations in Gaza, including a potential full occupation of the territory. Netanyahu's leadership appears to be leaning toward a more aggressive stance, with the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, conducting operations in areas holding hostages, aiming to neutralize Hamas and secure the release of captives. This decision comes amid intense political pressure domestically and internationally, with some critics accusing Netanyahu of prolonging the conflict for political gain, sacrificing hostage lives to maintain his fragile coalition. The Israeli military's heightened activity signals a shift toward a more aggressive approach, driven by the urgent need to rescue the deteriorating hostages and restore security, even as the humanitarian toll in Gaza continues to mount. The government's resolve to act decisively underscores the gravity of the crisis, with the stakes higher than ever as Israel grapples with the complex challenge of balancing military objectives and humanitarian concerns. The Jerusalem Post emphasizes the broader implications of Netanyahu's decision, highlighting the complex political and military landscape Israel faces. As the IDF prepares for a full-scale operation in Gaza, the Israeli leadership is under immense pressure from hardliners who demand a decisive victory over Hamas. Netanyahu's government is navigating a delicate balance, aiming to restore security and free the hostages while managing international criticism over the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in Gaza. The decision to intensify military activity reflects a shift toward a more confrontational stance, with officials and military commanders prepared for a potential prolonged conflict. This move signifies Israel's commitment to dismantling Hamas's capabilities, but it also raises fears of escalating violence and further suffering among Gaza's civilian population. As the situation intensifies, the world watches anxiously, aware that Israel's next steps could shape the region's stability for years to come. South China Morning Post vividly portrays the high-stakes global race over rare earths, emphasizing China's dominant position in the supply chain, controlling over 60% of mining, 85% of processing, and more than 90% of magnet production. This strategic advantage has become a geopolitical weapon in the US-China trade war, prompting Western nations to accelerate efforts to diversify sources through initiatives like the US Mine to Magnets project, and partnerships with resource-rich countries such as Vietnam, Greenland, and Kazakhstan. Despite these efforts, experts warn that China's long-standing monopoly, built over decades with significant technological and infrastructural investments, cannot be easily replaced, with environmental concerns and lengthy permitting processes posing additional hurdles for developing alternative supply chains. The Independent reports on Steve Witkoff, a real estate developer turned US envoy, who is engaging in delicate diplomacy with Russia amid ongoing tensions over Ukraine. Witkoff's visits to Moscow, characterized by a notably informal approach, such as arriving without an American translator, highlight the unusual and somewhat contentious nature of his role. His upcoming meetings come at a tense moment, just after Trump's provocative announcement of deploying nuclear submarines in response to inflammatory Russian statements, illustrating the fragile state of US-Russia relations. Trump's rhetoric, combined with his envoy's conciliatory visits, underscores the complex and unpredictable landscape of international diplomacy surrounding the Ukraine conflict and nuclear deterrence. Australian Broadcasting Corporation details the political and social tensions surrounding a massive pro-Palestinian protest on Sydney's Harbour Bridge. The court's decision to permit the demonstration prevented a potentially chaotic crackdown, but it also raised concerns about future protests and the government's ability to control such events. Premier Chris Minns faces a dilemma, balancing respect for public dissent with maintaining order, amid opposition calls for legislation to prevent similar protests. The protest scale revealed deep community concern over Gaza's humanitarian crisis, prompting Minns to acknowledge the emotional and moral complexity of the issue. His nuanced response reflects the challenge of navigating public sentiment, political pressures, and legal boundaries in a highly sensitive international conflict. The South China Morning Post reports that Hong Kong's Trade Development Council, HKTDC, is forging a strategic alliance with Bank of China, BOC, to leverage their respective strengths, BOC's extensive financial network across more than 60 countries and HKTDC's global trade connections, to help mainland Chinese companies expand overseas. Under the leadership of new chairman Frederick Ma Si-hang, the council aims to reposition itself as a superconnector, organizing overseas trips and promoting Hong Kong as a vital trade hub amidst ongoing geopolitical tensions and US-China trade conflicts, including tariffs and sanctions that disrupt supply chains. Ma emphasizes that despite threats from U.S. lawmakers to close Hong Kong's trade offices, the Council will intensify its efforts, especially in the U.S., where trade has declined but remains significant, and in Europe, where they plan to foster closer business links. Ma's appointment, alongside BOC's chairman Gu Haijiao, signals a strategic move to strengthen Hong Kong's role as an intermediary and global trade facilitator, even as the U.S. considers legislation to shut down its trade offices in the city, which Ma acknowledges as a challenge but one that the HKTDC is prepared to meet by increasing its responsibility and presence. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.